A very warm welcome to everyone here at ACOP 2022 and welcome back from the 2-hour intermission break. My name is Eunice. I'm a psychologist with the Home Team Behavioral Sciences Center in the Ministry of Home Affairs, Singapore, and I'll be the facilitator for this keynote session. To our friends and colleagues from Singapore and the Asian region, we hope you have managed to catch a good dinner. It's about 8 p.m. now in Singapore. To our friends joining us from the other parts of the world, we're very glad to have you with us. It'll be around 8 a.m. in the US region, about 1 p.m. in the UK region, and around 10 p.m. in Australia now. So thank you for tuning in to ACOP from where you are. I'll just very quickly cover some house rules here. First, we'd like to seek everyone's cooperation not to record the sessions or reproduce the content without the speaker's agreement. The organizers, however, may record the session for publicity and archival purposes. Nonetheless, for non-sensitive content, you are free to share your experiences and thoughts on our social media, and don't forget to hashtag ACOP 2022. Second, let me draw your attention to two functions on the platform. Okay, so for comments, do feel free to share your comments in the chat function. And for questions that you'd like to ask our speaker, please type them in the Q&A panel instead. So the comments are for the chat function, while the questions will be for the Q&A function. So you may also wish to upvote questions posed by other delegates that you would like to have answered. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties with the conference online platform, you may also reach out to our organizing team in the chat. And the next slide also shows some useful links that you may wish to take note of. All right, so before we begin, let's warm up with a short activity in view that today's keynote session relates to well-being. All right, so staring at the screen for too long might actually cause strain to our eyes. So to help release the strain in our eyes, I would like to invite everyone, about 200 of you, okay, to engage in a quick palming exercise. We'll do the second one very quickly. All right, so if you could just look at the instructions here. Okay, we could rub our palms together. Just follow me as I go along, okay, until you start to feel that they feel warm. Okay, and we'll just close our eyes and place our palms after you feel that a little bit warmer, okay, over your eyelids. And we'll just put it there for a few seconds. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I hope that you were following along with me. Okay, so it's actually drawing from Tibetan yoga origins for this. Palming actually has been shown to soothe our optic nerves, okay, which is often irritated when we stare at screens for too long, which many of us tend to do when we're at work and even when we're at home, okay, staring at different devices. Okay, so the darkness involved in palming, putting our palms over our eyes, actually helps our eye muscles to relax. Okay, so just to take note not to press too deeply into your eye sockets. Okay, so do feel free to try out the exercises here as and when every 20 minutes to help ease the strain on our eyes. Okay, so without further ado, I'm very pleased and honored to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Yune Cho, Assistant Professor from the Department of Business Administration, College of Commerce, National Cheng Chi University. Dr. Yune is here with us live and will be sharing about occupational health and well-being in the post-pandemic world. Dr. Yune is an industrial organizational psychologist who specializes in occupational health and well-being. Her research program focuses on health implications of multiple role engagement throughout the lifespan, and various individual and organizational factors that shape work-life balance, which is something very close to our hearts, right? So her recent research examines occupational health and well-being among police officers and explores ways to optimize occupational health and well-being in the post-pandemic world. Dr. Yune will provide a 30-minute sharing, and she'll take questions from the audience in the last 10 minutes after the keynote presentation. So Dr. Yune, please.
Okay, greetings to everyone. It's my pleasure to have this opportunity today. My talk is titled The Same, Only Different, Occupational Health and Well-Being in the Post-Pandemic World. As in the title, the same, only different is the keyword of this talk. What do I mean by that? Well, let me give an analogy using this keynote. I am giving this keynote in my room, and as you can imagine, my view is something like this. I'm looking at my computer screen, trying to get the feel of the conference. If I were giving this keynote in a conference in a pre-pandemic time, my view would have been something like this. I would be on the stage behind the podium in a room filled with the audience. Wow, so by now you may think, okay, so I only see the different part. But then what about the same part? Well, the medium and method of interactions have changed, but some fundamentals may remain the same. For example, my keynote will deliver important messages to all of you, who I'm sure are fully engaged and very excited to learn something from this keynote. And I have no doubt that you will enjoy this talk, similar to what you would have at an in-person conference. So coming back to my talk, the main message of my talk is that occupational health and well-being is the key to organizational success. And this is the same as in the pre-pandemic world of work, but there will be surely some differences in the post-pandemic world of work. As many of us have experienced, pandemic forced the adoption of remote work. Many non-essential workers worked from home using computer, and teamwork was facilitated with technology. At the face value, this is surely different from how we worked in the pre-pandemic world, where we were working in the office without wearing a mask, and face-to-face interaction with the team members were the default option for many of us. Despite these differences in the way we work, I discovered that issues concerning occupational health and well-being have been rather consistent. For example, let's take a look at this article published in Time in 2021. The title is "The Great Resignation is finally getting companies to take burnout seriously. Is it enough?" While emphasizing the seriousness of burnout, this title also highlights that burnout has been a persistent issue that is finally getting some serious attention. Indeed, the prevalence and seriousness of burnout have been a concern for some time, as can be seen in this Straits Times article back in 2014. What about work-life balance that everyone is talking about these days? This article published a few weeks ago in The Hill reports that those people who are joining the workforce, they express the importance of work-life balance, and they are demanding a greater role to the employer. But the issues of work-life balance, or the lack thereof, is certainly not the news. Occupational health and well-being have been considered important by practitioners and academics as well. Let's take a quick look at the result of the annual member survey about the top 10 work trends conducted by SIAP, a professional association in the field of industrial and organizational psychology. As you can see here, work-life balance interventions, workforce health and well-being, meaning and purpose work. These were all have been ranked on the list in the pre-pandemic times. Occupational health and well-being was always important, but perhaps now more than ever. The results from the post-pandemic include more items on these issues, such as caring for employee well-being, stress and burnout, and employers' role in employees' mental health. So here you may notice that experts also demand or recommend employers to play a more active role for employee health and well-being. So with this understanding that occupational health and well-being is important and the key to the organizational success, I will share 3 streams of my research today. They are work non-work balance, effort reward imbalance, and recovery from job demands. And for each topic, I will first answer, what do we know? So introducing the definitions and our understanding about this topic in the pre-pandemic times. Then I will talk about how the situation changed during the pandemic. And finally, I will introduce some of the research-driven recommendations for the post-pandemic time so that we can leverage workforce health towards the organizational success. And in my talk, my intention is to focus on the ideas on the global level rather than delving into each specific study. But I included the full citations for the work that I discussed. So please feel free to check them out after my talk if you are interested. Okay, so the first stream of research that I will share is work non-work balance. And let me begin with the definition of this concept, especially for many of people who envision this balance in their mind. The current understanding of work non-work balance is that it is your global evaluation of the combination of work and non-work roles. And this evaluation concerns how much you are involved in these roles and how effective do you perceive yourself and how do you feel about these experiences. And importantly, in this evaluation, the values that you attach to different roles function as the standard. So for example, if you are a person who value your family role more so than your work role, disproportional involvement and disproportional effectiveness that you perceive, which favors the family, may still lead to the favorable perception of work non-work balance. So this appraisal of work non-work balance is a very subjective and personalized perception, rather than a rigid comparison of equal involvement or effectiveness across your life roles. Does it matter to experience work non-work balance? Research evidence suggests that individuals' work non-work balance perception is important for individuals' health and well-being, and also important for organizational success as well, because work non-work balance predicts a host of work outcomes, including workers' productivity and intention to quit the job. So this naturally leads to the question, how to achieve work non-work balance? And research discovered that various individual and organizational factors predict work non-work balance, including workers' personality, the nature of work. But today in my talk, I'd like to highlight 2 more malleable factors that I have researched before. The first is work non-work boundary management. So the idea is that we have different preferences as to how we want to create boundaries between work and non-work domains. Those who prefer to segment different life domains, they are called separators, they would try to create a strong and solid boundary. For example, they may only work during designated work hours and only in office, while keeping the weekends free of work. On the opposite end of this continuum are those people who prefer to integrate work and family. And these people are those who let work and family flow to each other and attend to work and non-work issues as they arise. Okay? Most of us fall somewhere on this continuum. So the two very different ways to manage the boundaries, but the key here is the matching. So creating the work, non-work boundaries that align with your preference would facilitate perceptions of work, non-work balance. The second concept that I like to introduce is work-life balance self-efficacy, which reflects our belief in our own ability to achieve work, non-work balance. If you have high work-life balance self-efficacy, that means that you are confident to achieve work-life balance despite many challenges to do so. And unlike personality that is known to be relatively stable over time, this self-efficacy is a trainable individual difference and has been shown to positively predict work-life balance. So have anything changed during the pandemic in relation to work, non-work balance? The landscape for work, non-work interface surely changed during the pandemic. And as we all know, boundaries between work and non-work were extremely blurred. And many of the routines that we had carefully developed to manage these work and non-work boundaries were all abandoned. But despite these changes, empirical research during the pandemic showed that many of the personal, work, and family factors that are known to facilitate work, non-work balance still remain effective during the pandemic. For example, because work and non-work boundaries were extremely blurred, those who prefer integrating the different life domains, they were better off during the pandemic. Studies also show that work domain factors such as supervisor support and family domain factors such as having a designated home office also influenced the work-life balance during the pandemic, probably because these factors enable the workers to create the desired work-life boundaries in turmoil. The benefits of the work-life self-efficacy were observed in my recent study. So I surveyed a group of Singaporean workers who care for an elderly, and I longitudinally followed them over a year, spanning from the pre-pandemic and during the circuit breaker, which was imposed in 2020 against the spread of COVID-19, and then 1 month after the circuit breaker. And the findings suggest that working caregivers who have higher self-efficacy indeed reported the higher work-life balance during the circuit breaker. And this was in part because these people who have a high self-efficacy were less affected by the challenges at work and family. As you can see in this picture, describing the relationship between the challenges in the work and family on the y-axis. So the left figure is showing the work demands and the right figure is showing you the difficulty to use the technology to care for the elderly. And then this is predicting the level of the work-family balance perceived during the circuit breaker, okay? And as you can see, there was a negative relationship between the challenges and the work-family balance, but this was observed only among those people who have lower work-family balance self-efficacy. This negative relation was not significant for those who have higher self-efficacy, suggesting that this work-family balance self-efficacy buffered the negative impact of these demands on work-family balance during the circuit breaker. So what we know so far points to two actions that we can take to facilitate work and non-work balance in the post-pandemic world. The first is to actively manage work non-work boundaries. In my research, I have identified various modes of boundary management that we can engage in. First such group of the tactics is the physical tactics. And physical tactics aim to change the physical environment to fit your boundary preferences. In the post-pandemic, because we envision that the remote work is likely to stay, creating a designated home office could be an effective tactic for those who desire more segmentation. And avoid bringing cross-domain objects such as bringing office laptop home, can be avoided. So the point here is that you can be more mindful about your physical space to make it better aligned with your preferences. The temporal tactics aim to create temporal boundary between work and family. And during the pandemic, many workers reported that they ended up spending longer time for work and letting work lingering during the after hours because of the blurred boundaries. So to better structure a work day and mark the temporal work boundary, you can create a schedule and try to stick to it. And setting aside blocks of the time for the family or other cherished non-work domain of your life, and treat them as if you would treat your work meetings could also be very effective. For those who are at the managerial positions, it's important to recognize this and try to avoid after hours work contact and respect employees' temporal family boundary. Behavioral tactics include the various behaviors that you engage to create the desired work-family boundaries. For example, remote workers may create the routines for the beginning and the end of the work, such as drinking coffee or taking a walk, which helps creating psychological boundary between work and family. And setting rules for the cross-domain technology use is also very important. And lastly, the communication tactics concerns informing others at work and family about the boundaries that you desire. By doing so, you can set a clear expectation about your availability. So communication also involves confronting other people who may occasionally violate your boundaries. So when that happens, you need to explain that it is not acceptable and need to work out together to make an alternative arrangement to prevent future violations. And again, for those who are at the managerial position, it is recommended to initiate the conversations about work and non-work boundaries with your employees. The second recommended action is to put efforts to increase the work-non-work balance self-efficacy, for example, by offering targeted training. Okay, so the training for the work-life balance self-efficacy could start with some self-reflection to evaluate the current levels of the work-life balance and understand the personal values that trainees attach to work and non-work roles. And then the training can further teach the trainees about how to secure resources at work and home, and also skills to manage the boundaries, etc. And because this training builds on the social cognitive theory, it would be recommended to provide opportunities for the mastery experiences and also incorporate the role modeling to facilitate the vicarious learning and invite the mentors who can be persuasive and supportive. Now we are moving on to the second research topic, which is effort reward imbalance. And this time we are really talking about the balance. Okay, so the idea behind this theory is that we expect the reciprocity in terms of the effort that we put into our work and the rewards they receive from work. And our effort may be intrinsic in the form of commitment, because we tend to put more effort when we are committed to work. And the efforts may be extrinsic in the form of the psychological and physical effort, the demands that we handle. And on the reward side, reward may be in the form of esteem, such as when we feel respected and recognized for the good work that we do, or monetary, including salaries and benefits. And in terms of the career opportunities, including promotion, career prospect, and job security. We perceive effort-reward imbalance when we think our effort is greater than the reward that we receive. And based on research, we know that effort-reward imbalance is a critical stressor that is associated with a host of health outcomes, ranging from insomnia to cardiovascular disease. Okay. And also, we know that this stressor is relevant to individuals across different occupations and also universal across cultures. Studies with white-collar workers, teachers, and healthcare professionals have consistently reported the harmful effect of the work effort-reward imbalance. And of course, police and law enforcement officers were not an exception. Several empirical studies conducted in various countries, including the US, Canada, Italy, Japan, supported the idea that the effort-reward imbalance is a stressor that predicts various health outcomes, including burnout. Unfortunately, the pandemic has tilted many people's balance concerning the effort and reward. In this uncertain situation, many workers had to increase the efforts and were exposed to newly emerging demands such as techno stress and also experience a greater burden for the work and might have spent longer time to get work done. However, on the reward side, reward did not necessarily increase proportionally, and for some people, reward even decreased because the career prospect became bleak and the job security decreased. But this kind of imbalance should not be ignored because we already know the harm of such imbalance. So what should we do? There are actions that we can take on both sides to adjust the balance back. On the effort side, of course, actions to reduce the efforts are necessary. And this may involve formally identifying the demands that emerged because of the new way of work and provide support to reduce the demands. And also find out smart ways, perhaps using technology to handle these demands is also necessary. On the reward side, actions to provide proportional reward are necessary. And this would mean to give adequate monetary reward and provide recognition and respect, and also offer career opportunities and job security. At this point, I want to add one more point that while establishing this balance, it might be very important to consider the unique occupational and organizational context. So in my recent study conducted with the Singapore police officers, I found that officers who put lower effort and receive lower reward reported the greatest likelihood of experiencing negative outcomes. So as you can see here in the odd ratios, these officers compared to the reference group on the top who put lower effort and receive higher reward, these officers were 3 times more likely to report poor physical health and about 7 times more likely to be dissatisfied with job. Interestingly, those officers who put higher effort and receive a higher reward, they demonstrated the completely opposite pattern, such that these officers had consistently lower likelihood of experiencing these negative outcomes. So comparison of these two groups suggests that not all balances are created equal. Both groups experience the balance in terms of the effort and reward, right? So high effort, high reward, low effort, low reward, but the results were completely opposite. My research team's explanation was that for public safety occupations, such as police officers, that are driven by altruistic and pro-social motivation, perhaps high commitment and putting greater effort is given. So receiving proportional reward is particularly important. So in this sense, organizational efforts to restore the balance between effort and reward should strive towards increasing reward to meet the efforts, rather than reducing effort to match the reward. Okay, so now we are moving to the final theme, which is recovery from job demands. And I am aware that many in the audience are the professionals in the criminal and operation psychology. So the term recovery may mean recovery from addiction, but that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. Recovery from job demands refers to a process opposite to job stress process, during which harmful effects of the job demands are reversed. And recovery can occur when we are free of demands. Okay, so when we properly recover from job demands, our psychological and physical functional systems finally have an opportunity to return to a pre-stress baseline level. When you heard this, free of demands, you may have pictured a fancy vacation on a beautiful beach. Well, a nice vacation is an important medium that can promote recovery, but actually research has found that recovery on a daily basis is more important. And recovery can happen in our everyday environment, such as during a nice coffee break with your colleagues, or taking a nice walk in the park during your lunch break, or through the brief meditation sessions that you have. Okay. And recent research I conducted with my colleague suggests that on-the-job breaks is an important mechanism for police officers to recharge their energy. Actually, this is on this study, a paper presentation is available in the ACO conference website. So if you're interested in, please check it out. Okay, so you may wonder, why should we care about employees' recovery? Shouldn't that be individuals' business? Well, research evidence today suggests that timely and proper recovery from job demands protect workers' health and well-being and also promote their work outcomes. So clearly, recovery is an important concern for individuals as well as organizations. Then, how can we achieve recovery from job demands? For a brief moment, I invite you to think about what you do when you take a break. Okay. Some of us sleep or take a nap, while others exercise. Okay. Or maybe some of you engaging in enjoyable hobbies, art and music, while others socialize with the good friends. They are all of good options, right? But look very different. But interestingly, research actually suggests that these seemingly different activities actually share some common psychological attributes. And these psychological attributes are called recovery experiences. And these recovery experiences is the main driver of the recovery benefits. So for example, many of these non-work activities that we do allow us to mentally disengage from our work. So we don't think about our work, right? And when we engage in these activities, we tend to be more relaxed so that our activation level is low and experience mild positive emotion. And some of these activities give opportunities for mastery because we successfully deal with challenges and learn some new skills. And many of these activities, because we choose it out of our volition, they tend to lead to positive emotions, which can help our functional systems return to the baseline. Pandemic has created more challenges against the proper recovery. As we all know, job demands have increased for many people, and the boundaries between work and family have been blurred. So overall, it's more difficult for us to relax and psychologically detach from work. And of course, many workers did not have the luxury to engaging in hobbies during this difficult time. However, research suggests that on-the-job breaks delivered the benefits and buffered negative impact of the job stress, even during the pandemic. And the boundary management facilitated recovery experiences. So this tells us that we should promote recovery in the post-pandemic world. Organizations may view this as a strategic move towards healthy workforce. While on the job, we should encourage workers to set aside time for breaks but simply setting aside time may not be enough. All of us probably have lunched in before when our work demands are so high, trying to get some more work done while eating lunch on our desk. These pseudo breaks don't really help recovery. So in addition to scheduling breaks, workers should also be encouraged to engaging in meaningful activities with recovery potential. And they may also be encouraged to take micro breaks as necessary. And day to day, during the off-job time, we should encourage everyone to find leisure activities that allow recovery experiences so that they can successfully recharge. And using the various tactics to manage work and family boundaries, this can also help recovery. And studies have shown that the recovery experiences can also be trained. So offering training to employees so that they can utilize their off-job time better can be an option. And in this recovery training, trainees may be introduced to the concept of recovery experiences and learn to plan and design their leisure time so they can be conducive to the recovery. And the training may also incorporate the goal setting techniques and time management training to make it even more effective. Okay, so in closing, occupational health and well-being is important at all times, but perhaps especially so in the post-pandemic world of work. A lot have changed during the pandemic, such as the nature of work changed, work and non-work boundaries continue to be blurred. And also there are newly emerging demands, such as techno stress, but the fundamentals likely remain the same. In this talk, I shared 3 streams of my research on work-non-work balance, effort-reward imbalance, and recovery from job demands, and introduce some actions that we can take to achieve occupational health and well-being, which I argue that is the key to success in the new world of work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yuni, for the very interesting and insightful sharing about your perspectives and your research as well. Yeah, so I believe many in the audience have taken an interest in some of the sharing you have given. Yeah, so there have been some questions that have come in as well. Yeah, so there were certain things that struck me about your presentation, and I myself am quite interested. So some of the questions do resonate with me. So I guess without further ado, we can move on to the Q&A segment. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just sieving through some of the questions that came in. If I can think about, I guess, the practical aspects of the strategies that you have mentioned. So some of them asked about boundaries. Okay, so one question was about conversations about creating boundaries. Question was, what if conversations don't work, and what else can we do? And it's relating to also another question that asked about confronting violators. What if, you know, some of these violators involve superiors? So there may be some challenges navigating that. So wonder if Dr. Yuni has any thoughts about this?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I think it's, I actually get these questions other places when I give this talk. And I think a lot of people are aware of this issue. It's a very delicate issue to navigate through. And my recommendation is that that's why I always include the suggestions for the superiors. So I think our research and our effort to educate the public, we should target more of the superiors. So help them to recognize that actually helping the employees to proper boundaries and then recover so that they can use the time to recharge and get back to the work actually is win-win, is helping the superiors as well. And because there is a power differential, it's always more difficult for employees to, initiate this kind of conversation, worrying about the potential, consequences. So I think organizations should put more emphasis on the supervisors so that they can be the change makers. They should be the one who initiate and make the psychologically safe environment to start talking about it. And they should be coming from their clear understanding that it's actually not helping, it's not the benefit that we are giving for employees, it's actually something good for the whole team and the whole organization.
Thanks for sharing that, Rachel. Yeah, so I think it's also about, I think you mentioned about creating a win-win situation, helping the organization recognize that it's also in their favor to have this conversation, although it's not always easy, but to start somewhere, yeah, in navigating that. I'll just move to another question. For Dr. Yuni, from your research, what observations have you made about the work and non-work balance techniques preferred by different profiles of workers, such as, level of seniority, age, family roles, gender? Any observations come to mind?
From my observation, I do not find the particular preferences as to which tactics to use. I think this is very subjective thing. And as far as I observed, it's more personalized preferences rather than I can expect that, okay, so in general, woman versus man or young or old tend to prefer this. This is more like a individualized preferences. So as far as in my own research, I haven't really discovered the preferences based on those background factors.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's kind of relating to a personal question that I had in my mind while you were sharing as well. So you talked about the separators and integrators. Yeah, the continuum, right? So I was just curious whether this does change along the way as people mature, grow older, or there's does it keep to a certain side of the continuum throughout our lifetime?
I think first of all, there is not enough longitudinal evidence for me to confidently say that it changes over time. But there is a finding suggesting that there is enough changes over time as to what people prefer. And it could be along with the lifespan. So when you are younger, people tend to put more emphasis on the work domain. So maybe their family domain is more permeable so that they let work affect their family more when they're younger. Because in most of the people, young people, career is more important. So maybe they don't mind letting work spill over to the family more. But as we get older and then start our own family, maybe people try to, the value changes. And then therefore people's boundary preferences may also change.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I'll move to another question. Dr. Yune, you mentioned that one of the recommendations for work, non-work balance is to help reduce effort and increase rewards. So how do we help staff feel less guilty of reducing their effort and encourage leaders to take active steps to provide rewards intentionally?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yep. So with regard to the work, non-work balance, any thoughts on how can we help our employees, our staff, feel less guilty of reducing their effort and encourage leaders to take active steps to provide rewards intentionally?
I think for the first part about the guilty about effort, I think it comes from, it can help to create a more concrete list of the job tasks that need to be completed. I think this is something that I try to try myself as well. And also research suggests that visualizing what you have done and making the list of the things so that you can see your effort. I think people always think I can do more. And we don't really always see that how much effort we actually have put. So self-initiating the structure and supervisors trying to help that help employees to see the actual effort going into. I think that can help. And I think that could also be the first step to establish the proportional rewards as well. And one thing that I have seen is relating to the pandemic and the techno stress, a lot of people have spent more time to get work done in a remote way because there are a lot of additional setups that needs to be done. Maybe communication takes longer time. So actually, in reality, people put more effort, at least in terms of the time that needs to go in. But we don't always see that because we only focus on, maybe the end product. So identifying and formally recognizing this new effort in the new way of work, and then try to match the reward to this hidden effort, I think that could be one very important step to take.
I see. Thanks for sharing these insights with us. Yeah, I think relating to that, there are some upvoted questions as well. I'll just come to them. Okay. Yep, it's relating to hybrid work arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Dr. Yuni, thanks for the comprehensive sharing from the participants. Okay, so we are seeing more workplaces transiting to hybrid work arrangements. Yep. So wondering if you could share your thoughts on the possible adaptations to your recommendations to further promote occupational health and well-being in the new hybrid workspace.
Mm-mm. I think one thing that I think it's good to hold on to is many of the theories that we understood still may work in the hybrid work. So to structure the workday at the individual level, and then try to communicate with the people who are working in the hybrid, because that usually is the source of the difficulty when people start to work hybrid. So at the individual level, we focus to create the structure for our workday, and then open the channel of the communication so the hybrid workers can stay on the same page.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm just mindful of time that about time to wrap up. So perhaps I will just offer one more question, and we can also get our panelists to share more in some of these questions later on as well. Yep. Okay, so I'll just come into one of the questions. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Yuni. In your opinion, how can company organizations introduce or promote recovery experiences for their staff? Yeah.
So I think first, letting people have the time and good mindset to have this recovery is the first thing. So it could be something as formal as, banning the after-hour work conversation so that people can have the time, right? And recovery experiences, that's actually the published work showing that people may not know about these underlying psychological experiences. So maybe people think, okay, I'm exercising or I'm still socializing, but so long as you're still thinking about your work, the time supposed to help you to recover may not deliver the expected benefits. So helping, I think this is in the organization's interest to educate the employees what's important. It's not the specific activities that you engage in, but it's about how you cherish the time so that you actually disengage from your work and letting your mind and body have a good recovery. So I think that would be the answer for the question.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, oftentimes I think we see in organizations who may have exercise day, activity days, and staff may still have a lot on their mind about, certain emails to reply or certain projects that have tight timelines. So I think what you've highlighted from that is also the importance of appreciating the value, of being in that moment. What is the value of taking on that activity, and
Yeah, and tying back to the earlier question, because this issue always goes back to the power differential. Power differential. So employees may be shy of or worried about initiating this, conversation. Like, if I talk about recovery, am I going to be considered as a slacker? So I think coming from organization and coming from supervisor, therefore, is very important in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, especially so, I mean, in certain organizations where the power differences will be more pronounced. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. We have come to the end of the Q&A session for now. I understand there are very interesting chatter in the Q&A portal. So Dr. Yuni may have a look at that as well later on. And also during the panel discussion, panelists may also raise some of the pointers that were asked. Okay, so Dr. Yuni will be staying on and joining us in the panel session with the rest of our panelists coming up in 15 minutes time. Okay, so we'll be having a short turnaround break as we prepare for our panel discussion. We'll see everyone again in 15 minutes time. In the meantime, do enjoy the following video that's been prepared. Yep, so we look forward to seeing everyone back here in a short while.